could just see you after.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, y'all will make me cry, and I won't be able to do this. My sister's blubbering already. I told her she would. That was good times. So good evening. On behalf of my sister Sabrina, who's here, my sister Kelly, who couldn't be here because of work, and my brother Jason, and the rest of Dad's family and friends who are here, we want to thank the Oklahoma Golf Hall of Fame for recognizing Dad's golf achievements. It's truly an honor to be here, and this has been a fabulous evening for us. A little bit about me. I actually taught a public speaking class. I was a teacher for 21 years, and I taught it to 8th graders. So I know how difficult it is, not only to deliver a speech publicly, but how difficult it is to put into words something that will hold the audience's attention and accomplish the desired outcome of the speech topic. Writing this has been difficult. None of my siblings wanted to do it. I'm the oldest, so that's what happens. But I figured early on that if I didn't get the speech done, I'd just skip out and take a 0. But I got it finished. My goal in writing this was to give you, the audience, some nuggets of information about Dad, the man, that you can't Google. I mean, you can't Google what we experienced with Dad, so I wanted to give you a little bit of that tonight. And we wanted to pay tribute to a man who taught us, and everyone close to him, many important life lessons. So I titled this 5 Lessons Learned from Dad. Number 1, replace your divot. In the video, when Dad hit his second shot into the green at Champions, he came out of nowhere. He's still, I don't know if you know this, he's still the last person to win the U.S. Open who went through sectional qualifying. And he actually holed a bunker shot for birdie on the last hole to qualify for the Open. So I don't know, my dad's friend Eddie, who was in there, sent me a radio tape where the guy who was playing with him was talking about it. It's very interesting. So after Dad hit that shot, it was an 8-iron. He had 160 yards to the green, hit it 12 feet from the hole, kind of sealed up the U.S. Open. They didn't show it, but what he did was he went and picked his divot up and put it back. Nobody else was behind him. No one else was going to play that day. The tournament was over, but he left it better than he found it. So that's a good lesson. He was a humble man. He had manners. He treated others with respect. Just lots of lessons learned from Dad as far as taking care of things. Just take care of your things. Replace your divot. They talked about it. He wasn't raised in a rich family. A lot of times golfers come from well-off families. He lived in a house in Chickasha with dirt floors. His dad was the golf course superintendent, and I believe he actually moved to Oklahoma City with one of his older siblings to play at Capitol Hill when he was in high school. He never forgot he was poor, and they mentioned that he did spend his winnings. He won $30,000 for winning the U.S. Open in 1969, and he did purchase cars for his siblings. And as Larry said, he did give selflessly to others. I remember a kid I went to school with, a senior, his grandfather worked for my dad at the country club, and Jack Clayton was a great man. My dad loved him, and Dad bought his grandson Keith 4 new tires for his truck for graduation, just because that's kind of who he was. He also, while he was head pro at the country club, gave all the kids free lessons. We had a team, my 4 years, we went to state all 4 years. Golf wasn't a big thing in Sulphur Springs, but he gave all the kids something they could use, and we had some really, really good teams while he was there because he was willing to go out and work with the kids free of charge. He also let our friends travel with us in the summer and basically treated all our friends like his own. My best friends called him Unc. He's still Unc to them. Basically, he was humble. He loved freely. He gave freely, and he never forgot his roots. Number 2, avoid trouble on the course. Dad was a straight driver of the ball. If he needed to hit a fairway, most of the time he could do it. He'd tee it a little bit lower or say he was going to hit this shot or that shot. He was very accurate. If he needed to hit the fairway, he could do it. In fact, one time we were in Florida playing a Pro-Am, and we got backed up, as Pro-Ams are wont to do. We were on a par 3, and he's talking to all the guys he's playing with, and all of a sudden he says, "Hey, Michelle, give me a 7-iron. We're not hitting 7-iron on this hole. I said, "What are you going to do with 7-iron? He said, "See that bird up there? I'm going to knock him off the branch." And I said, "Absolutely not. You'll kill him." It didn't even, I knew if I gave him the club, the bird was dead. So we discussed, he said, "I'll hit him between his feet." Okay. So I gave him the club. He drops a ball, hits the bird between his feet, the bird flies off. He was that good. Another time at the country club where we live, number 1 tees here, there's a big lake in the middle, and number 5 fairway was on the other side of the lake. All the big hitters were teeing it up, driving balls across, just Mike McCaffrey pumping it 300 and some odd yards, and Dad says, "I can't hit it that far. But you see that post out there in the water? I'll hit that with driver." So he drops 3 balls, driver off the deck. He hit driver off the deck most of the time when he was mad. If he hit a bad shot, he'd want a driver, and he'd hit it driver off the deck. But he dropped 3 balls. 2 of the 3 hit the post. He was good. Let's see. Where am I? Because I'm kind of just going over this. Another time he would do golf clinics, and he could get to the top of his swing, and he'd tell them, holler out a shot at the top of the swing. So he'd swing, and a guy would say, "High fade," and coming through, he'd hit high fade. Another time, up here, low hook. He'd come through and hit a little low hooker down there. Got up here, some guy hollers, "Shank." And he stops and says, "Who the hell would ever want to hit that shot?" So, Dad always gave it to you straight. Just like he knew where his golf ball would land most of the time, we almost always knew the answer we would get from Dad when asking for his opinion on or advice. If you shoot straight in golf and life, it makes life easier to avoid trouble. Number 3, choose your caddy wisely. So players get to choose their caddies. Having a good caddy can be the difference in being successful or not so successful. If a good choice is made, many times a caddy can become an additional family member. In fact, Larry, I still talk to Larry. He had some other caddies that I still talk to, and I'll reference them in a second. I caddied for Dad for about a total of 3 years, and in the scope of his professional career, that's just a little blip. But I was a family member, so he kind of, he did choose me, but he was stuck with me anyway. Now, I want you to stop and think about all the people in your family. Think about that crazy one. Okay, you got him? So that was Dad's first caddy. Mom knows. Okay, Bob Zerbis. Bob was stationed with Dad in Fort Bliss in El Paso. Dad had qualified and gotten a spot in his first professional tournament, the Bing Crosby at Pebble Beach. Zerbis begged Dad to let him come caddy for him that week. Dad, for some strange reason, agreed. Now, Bob Zerbis played golf in his head. He actually wanted Dad to give him his handicap to qualify for the Open. And Dad said, you got to have a 1.8. You don't have that, Bob. He goes, I played a round of golf last night in my head. I shot 70, and I hit it OB on 14. I mean, this is Bob Zerbis. So off Bob and Dad go to Carmel, California. The first day there, Dad sets up on the range and begins hitting golf balls. And who comes and sits up right next to Dad? The king, Arnold Palmer, who, by the way, is one of my favorite senior golfers ever, besides my dad. And he smelled really good. And he called me sweetheart. So Arnold Palmer's there. Dad's in his first tournament. He's a little starstruck, a little bit nervous. Zerbis marches right over to Arnold and says, I had a set of your Arnold Palmer irons. Arnold doesn't know him. He's standing there. He's smiling. And Zerbis proceeds. And I quote, I'm quoting because there's a bad word in here. Worst pieces of shit I ever played. I threw them in the river. Then he turned around and went back over to where Dad was hitting balls. Needless to say, Dad was mortified. He made better choices after that. On the senior tour, he had Mule. Mule was a kind, gentle soul who loved to laugh. Mule holds a dear place in my heart. He actually called me just a few months before he passed away in Georgia when I was in Charleston one year with Eddie, actually. He carried the bag, raked bunkers, tended the pen, didn't argue. He was just kind of a very soft-spoken man. Great guy. Then he had Larry. You saw Larry on the video. He was kind of the ladies' man relative. He was good-looking, confident, and smart. Larry is a great storyteller. Larry did it all. He could read putts. He gave Dad the correct club. He'd argue with Dad. They argued all the time. Like I said, I'm still friends with Larry. And before I came out to caddy, another guy named Evan Byers caddied for him. And Evan is that relative who's thoughtful and gets along with everyone. I took Evan's place, and he could have been really upset. But that last win they were talking about before I went back for my senior year, Evan was out there with flowers for me on the 18th hole. We actually went snowmobiling with Evan last winter at Christmas time. I took my family up there. So I'm grateful for all the additional family members that I have that all brought something and some success to Dad's game. So we need to do the same in life. We need to surround ourselves with people who make us better and celebrate victories with us. Number 4, when life gives you the yips, have a short memory. This is a headline from a 1978 newspaper. Moody back after years of obscurity. This is 9 years after he won the U.S. Open. Imagine opening the paper and reading that you've been obscure for 9 years. Golf, like life, is not easy. There are yips. The key to success is deciding how much time will be spent reflecting on those missed putts in life. Following the U.S. Open win, golf was not easy for Dad. According to that article that the headline I just read, in the years following the U.S. Open, he won. In 1970, he won $50,000. In 71, $25,000. In 72, $13,000. 73 was a good year, $74,000. 1974, $13,000. 1975, $2,800. 1976, $2,800. 1977, $15,000. Looking back, I guess that's why I couldn't get that $50 pair of Gloria Vanderbilt jeans I wanted, but, I guess he was trying. So they reference that Dad was one of the best ball strikers that there ever was. He was also simultaneously known as the worst putter on tour. He had the yips. I remember those. Even when I was little, There were times he'd have the 4-footer, and literally we could not watch him putt it. We would turn our backs to the putting green, and we would listen. Most of the time, you got the affirmation that you knew he had missed it. Sometimes he would make it, and you could hear the people clap. More often than not, it was a missed putt. So what do you learn from the yips? Perseverance. We go through life where things just don't go our way. We get the yips. We have to forge ahead, keep tinkering with the process until we find a way to make it work. Dad tried every putting style known to man. He putted cross-handed. He putted side saddle. He closed his eyes. He literally putted with his eyes closed. And my personal favorite, the old cross-hand grip with the bass-ackwards putter, that one that came out and pointed back at you, that was a beauty. Then Dad found the long putter. And I don't know how many of you know the story behind the long putter, but Dad did not invent it. There was a wonderful man on the tour named Charlie Owens. Some of you may know. Charlie was a former paratrooper who had a fused knee from years of parachuting from a plane while serving our country in the military. He hit the golf ball with a cross-handed grip, actually, because he couldn't turn well enough. He had a cross-handed grip when he hit the golf ball. Charlie also suffered from the yips and came up with the long putter that split his hands. Dad was intrigued by the putter, and after hitting some putts on the putting green, set about to building his own long putter. And I apologize, I meant to bring it. I have it here, the first one that he used. I have it in my closet, actually at home. It hung in our house with a plaque that said, "This putter saved my life." It completely transformed his golf career. He was still one of the best ball strikers, and he quickly became the best putter. The tours keep stats on the players, and each week when the new stat sheets came out, he was never more proud. He didn't care money-wise, greens and regulation. When he was number one as a putter, those were some of the best, most proudest accomplishments that he had, was to be number one. He was so bad, and now he was number one in putting. Had Dad let the yips get him down and cause him to quit, we might not be here tonight honoring his many golf accomplishments. When life gives you the yips, you need a short-term memory in order to rewrite your headline. And number 5, enjoy the drive. Dad loved driving. I'm not sure if this love of driving was innate or born out of necessity. I mean, when you're making under $20,000 a year for 4 straight years, you don't have the financial means to fly to your golf tournaments. Throw in a wife and kids, and it just wasn't affordable. These are probably my favorite childhood memories that I'm about to discuss. I didn't realize we were monetarily poor because emotionally we were so very rich. Every summer, we would load up into a van that had dual gas tanks. You know how I know? Because if you had to go to the bathroom, you didn't stop until it needed gas. It's a long way. We had a 31-foot travel trailer that we pulled behind us, and we'd set out for the summer swing of the tour. We stayed at these little Jellystone RV parks. Remember Yogi Bear, all that kind of stuff? So we'd park and camp. Had white rock everywhere, and we'd run around barefooted on all the paths. We'd wait for the tram to come get us at night and take us to see the movie. We ate dinner together in the camper. By the end of the summer, my feet were tough from running barefoot throughout the park. During the day, we would follow Dad on the course and hope he made the cut. We'd load up in the van on Friday, most of the time, and sometimes on Sunday to head to the next town. During these long trips, like I said, I learned to hold it till the 2 tanks ran out of gas because we weren't stopping till then. I learned the states and capitals. Dad would ask, West Coast or East Coast? North or South? Then he would proceed, naming a state in order from wherever I chose. He'd say Washington, Olympia, Oregon, Salem, California, Sacramento. He taught me mental math. How much money would you tip on a $25 bill if you wanted to tip 15%? How much would I save on $50 shoes if they were 35% off? We sang The Preacher and the Bear. My brother Jason would ask, Dad, would you rather cut off your foot or your hand? Dad, would you rather lose your right arm or your left leg? He learned my music and can do the best opening to Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. We drove through McDonald's where he always got his favorite, the McRib. And McDonald's always messed up my cheeseburger by putting mustard on it. I would cry. Dad would not turn around. Dad knew all the tallest mountains in the world. He knew mile markers. That was what he was known for. He knew the country by mile markers. He'd say, hey, if you're going on Highway 20, there's a great restaurant at mile marker 187 in Louisiana. He just knew mile markers. He loved driving to see his best friend, Eddie. He would go see Eddie in New York, in Charleston. Golf allowed a Native American kid from Chickasha, Oklahoma, to become best friends with a Jewish kid from New York. Even the last year of Dad's life, he was driving all over the country visiting friends. He was in Florida playing an outing when he got sick and diagnosed with multiple myeloma. When we got his car to my house, it was filled with all his favorite road trip necessities. Cokes, water bottles, sunflower seeds, his spiral that had all his football bets written in it in handwriting, his briefcase, and a map. Dad enjoyed his drive. We enjoyed being along for the ride. We're grateful for all the lessons we learned from him. Thank you for honoring Orville Moody. He was a great golfer. He was humble. He was a straight shooter. He was a good father, brother, and friend. He was steadfast, and he enjoyed the ride.